Settle down, boys. Get your luggage ready. We're headed back to the fight capital of the world. We got UFC Vegas 95 set to take place this upcoming weekend. We have a rematch of two top 10 heavyweight fighters, Marcin Tybura taking on Serghei Spivac. Now, Tybura did win their first bout via unanimous decision. That fight took place back in 2020. So we'll see if Spivac can get some redemption here. Not the most stacked of cards, if we're being honest. You guys know we shoot it straight here, but we will make this a fun card. We will find our spots to capitalize and make some money. Javid Basharat taking on Chris Gutierrez in the co-main event. We take a quick look at the preliminaries. Notable bouts such as Jonny Parsons taking on Yusaku Kinoshita, and Barlow taking on Nikolay Veretennikov. Now, again, when I'm saying these fighters' names, I'm not saying them to you as they're big names in the game. I'm talking about these are fights that should deliver. Now, for those of you guys that are eager for those big name matchups, remember we have some big fights coming up on the horizon. UFC 305 and UFC 306. We have champions defending their belts. Check out this graphic that I just made on Instagram. Go follow me at MMA Fortune Teller _. I thought this is very interesting. Both champions are currently underdogs. And in fact, I do expect that to be the case when those fights kick off. I think that they will remain underdogs. Of course, Duplessis taking on Israel Adesanya, the former champ, and we have Sugar Sean O'Malley taking on Merab Dvalishvili. I think that Sean will be the underdog in that matchup as well. People are very worried how he's going to handle the pressure and wrestling of Merab, who's been an absolute machine. So two big fights that are on the radar. Cannot wait to watch those fights with you guys. Don't forget, we're doing the fight companions for every fight card. I hope you guys join me for the fight companion for this fight card. That aspect of the channel is ever evolving, and I just have a great time doing it. So the more people that join us, the more fun it will be. Appreciate you guys there. And don't forget, if you want to work with me for my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out. Shoot me a DM on Instagram, Twitter, or shoot me an email. I'll give you further details there. Please do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, we are on the verge of hitting that 10K subscriber mark, and it's got me pumped. So I appreciate you guys big there. And the last thing before we jump into the first fight, do not forget, we are powered by BetUS. Sign up through the link in the description of this video. Get a 125% match on your first 3 deposits. Nobody is doing those types of matches out there as far as these sportsbooks go. Remember that. All right, guys. So let's go jump into the first fight.
The teller. The teller. The teller.
So this was a newly added fight to this card. I don't expect this to be the first fight of the event, but we're going to kick things off talking about it. Barlow was initially set to be facing off against Uros Medic, which was going to be an absolute collision course. Both fighters extremely hot. Both fighters had that knockout power. I was very excited for that matchup. According to Barlow, he feels that Medic didn't want that smoke, and he pulled out because he didn't want to step across from Barlow in the octagon. Now, I don't know if that's the case. I don't really believe that to be the case. Medic is a tough dude, but I kind of understand where the confidence is coming from as far as Barlow goes. I mean, this dude is going in there. He's starching dudes left and right. You guys know he was an official play for us in his last fight. Came through, passed that test with flying colors as he went out there, and he knocked out Josh Quinlan in the 3rd round and was really getting the better of him throughout that entire fight. Looked great on Dana White's Contender Series, getting the 1st round knockout over fellow statesman Raheem Forrest. Listen, this dude brings some serious intangibles to this weight class. He has almost an 80-inch wingspan, which is crazy. He's going to have about a 5-inch reach advantage over Nikolay here, which definitely could be a problem, especially when you mix in the fact that it's not just a reach advantage. He's a more polished and dangerous striker as well. So Nikolay has to be on his P's and Q's defensively. I have seen some issues with him on tape where his hands do hang a little low. He does eat some shots. He kind of resorts to his toughness. He tries to pressure with his toughness, and he looks to mix things up. He has some grappling skills. I mean, if you take a look at his bounce back victory after losing to Michael Morales, who, by the way, we may have not known that at the time, but Michael Morales is one of the best fighters on planet Earth. Okay. And we heard about some of the wrestling abilities that he had going into that fight. He was like an Ecuador national wrestling champ, but I'll be the first to admit I wasn't really buying into that. I didn't really know Ecuador produced solid wrestlers like that, but Michael Morales is a very well-rounded fighter, one of the best fighters in this weight. Okay. And Michael Morales had a lot of success using his wrestling against Veretennikov there. So that's something to keep an eye on. Michael Morales also outstruck him. Okay. But back to the bounce back victory that Veretennikov had against DeMarcus Jackson. That was a fight where he eventually got the second round sub, but I saw him eating shots early on in that fight as well. Hands were kind of low. He does suffer a little bit from robot syndrome. He's a little stiff, a little muscular, and I think that's going to be an issue for him here. I think that Danny Barlow is going to be fluid. He's going to be relaxed. And he's going to be teeing off on him, okay? I'll get to the path of victory for Veretennikov here, although I'm not really a big believer in it. But the path to victory here would be for sure to look to exploit Danny Barlow's experience and his grappling. That would be the route there, okay? Even if you take a look at the last 2 victories that Barlow just had, went out there, got those 2 knockouts, as we talked about, over Forrest and Quinlan. They're not really known for their grappling. I'm not saying that Veretennikov is necessarily known to be a solid grappler, a big-time grappler, but he does have some experience. He's a lot more of a mature fighter, if you ask me. He's 34 years old, has more professional fighting experience under his belt with 16 pro fights, basically double, or essentially double the amount of pro experience. I think Nikolay has to make this an ugly fight. He needs to get on the inside, get up in the clinch, try to work in some takedowns, and maybe he can expose the grappling of Danny Barlow, who's more of a quick twitched athlete. But you know, if there was a time to try to go out there and expose him, I think the time is now, because month to month, year to year, Danny Barlow is just going to become a more complete fighter. And this is a fighter, you guys know, if you follow me on IG, you guys saw I did a whole video about Danny Barlow going into that Quinlan fight. I think this is a fighter that you really have to have on your radar. I think he's one of the top prospects in the game. And the more he keeps figuring out the overall game, this is a dude that can try to make a run to the top 15 and make a run down to fight for the belt one day. Okay, he has that type of raw ability. All right, so let's go jump over to the betting line. I'll let you guys know right now, I do have Danny Barlow winning this fight. I do have Danny Barlow getting a knockout in this fight. Okay, why am I going to turn my back on him right now? Nikolay's there to be hit. I know he's very tough, but I think Danny Barlow is going to put that heat on him. He's going to have 15 minutes to get him out of there, and I think that he does find the knockout. He's a minus 270 right now. Danny Barlow is a big favorite. And that line just opened up. Something I do want to note also, Nikolay's only been knocked out once. Okay, that was, let's just run that back real quick, that one knockout loss, because that's what we're really looking at here. Danny Barlow is a dude that finishes dudes on the feet. That knockout loss came back in 2014 against Ronnie Landetta. So not a long history of Nikolay showing that he's there to be finished, but he does eat shots. Good luck relying on his toughness against Danny Barlow. I still will take Danny Barlow to get that knockout. Danny Barlow, like we said, is a minus 270. Do you want to reach at that ticket on a more inexperienced fighter that still we need to see more from? I don't have a problem with it. I think that if I have to pick where I see the value on, I would still say there's value on Danny Barlow, even as high as this line is. You guys know I am a believer in Barlow. Give me Barlow via first or second round knockout. I'm taking more of the under 1.5 here. I think he gets an early knockout in this fight. In the bantamweight division, we have the Greek Charalampos Grigoriou, who came off Dana White's Contender Series. He since fell short in his UFC debut. He's taken on the former road to UFC competitor Toshiomi Kazama, who also just fell short in the octagon. But fighting some high-level competition, right? You take a look at Kazama here, just 27 years old, a very aggressive fighter. There's no question why the UFC is going to give him multiple shots here. They love fighters that go out there and look to bring the fight. Just got knocked out by Garrett Armfield in the first round. That doesn't look as bad right now. I know Armfield's coming off a loss, but Armfield has really proven to be a solid fighter, a very dangerous fighter. Okay, he also lost to Rinya Nakamura, one of the top prospects in this division. So take note of that. Charalampos Grigoriou had a big victory on DWCS over Cameron Smotherman, because Smotherman is a fighter that people really have on their radar. He's a young prospect that surrounds himself with some real talent. That was a big first round knockout for him where he countered Smotherman, but he looked horrendous against Chad Enhellinger. I'm going to call it for what it is, okay? Because Chad Enhellinger is a fighter that I'm not high on, to say the least. And to go out there and perform like that, he was completely outclassed. It's very alarming, okay? Now, going into that fight, you're hearing all these rave reviews from Team Sarah Longo about the work that Grigoriou has been putting in at that gym. And that does say a lot, because you know there's some killers out there, okay? But after seeing that fight, I think that all those positive things we were hearing were a little bit more of friends and teammates kind of trying to boost somebody up. Maybe he has a good work ethic, so they wanted to hype him up and whatnot. And I am leaning towards the fact that Smotherman KO was maybe a fight that he was a little bit more lucky in. Okay, and now this is me being brutally honest because, right, I'm of Greek heritage, right? I'm gonna root for Greek fighters when I see them working their way into the UFC. I want to see the sport evolve, and that part of the world is cool to see that because MMA is really not that big over there, if you're being honest, right? When you're talking about Italy, Greece, and that part of Europe, it's not that big. I want to see fighters do good in the octagon and see the sport grow over there. But Charalampos Grigoriou is not the fighter that's going to be making a run to the top 15. He's very lucky if he's even hanging on to a UFC contract after this fight. I will lean his way, mostly due to the fact that Kazama is a very low-level fighter as well. He's a very aggressive fighter, and I think that he's going to run into some counter shots of Grigoriou. I also like the fact that Grigoriou had the learning experience of his UFC debut to work off of here. I think that he'll look a little bit sharper out there, but this is not a fighter that I have set to make a run in this division, okay? To be completely transparent with you guys, I'm rooting for him. He's a good dude. I've talked to him on IG a little bit here and there, you know, a little bit of DMs, whatnot, giving him that little cheer. Obviously, like I said, I'm rooting for my fellow Greeks out there, but we'll see how he looks, man. We'll see how he looks. 32 years old. He needs to start going out there and making some statements. He needs to get a knockout here, and that knockout will be live. Kazama's been knocked out in 3 of his 4 losses. He was just knocked out in his last 2 losses, his last 2 fights. So he's there to be hit. And if Grigoriou doesn't go out there and do something special, he's going to be on the block there. So let's take a look at the betting line. Grigoriou is currently a minus 215 on BetUS. I don't think there's a lot of value there. I think that the value is on the dog here. I like Grigoriou to win the fight. Like I said, there is that aspect for him to get the finish. And even if it goes to the judges' scorecards, he should prove to be the better fighter overall. But there's conditioning issues, I would say. I don't know. Maybe there was a little bit of octagon jitters in that debut, but he definitely slowed down in that fight. And we'll see how he paces himself, but you should not be tagging this type of line and taking a risk on him at this line. He needs to prove more, even against a low-level fighter in Kazama. In the women's strawweight division, we have another rematch set to take place on this card. Now, these girls just fought on the past season of Dana White's Contender Series. That fight went to a draw. We have Stephanie Luciano taking on Talita Alencar. You see Luciano all pumped up when she got the contract. She had a very strong finish to that fight. She was down in the scorecards going into the 3rd round. She put that 10-8 on Alencar. You take a look at some of the numbers. If you remember, Luciano landing 54 of 90 in the 3rd round compared to the 9 of 28 in Alencar. If you guys aren't familiar with Alencar, right, she came into MMA with the very decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. Okay, she's a Jiu-Jitsu player first and foremost. She's figuring out this whole MMA thing. Now, she's up there in age, but just understand that she's just as green or she's just as new to MMA as Luciano is. Okay, now, one thing that I do believe Luciano has going for her here, she already proved that she can go in there and avoid getting submitted by the very dangerous submission player there. And the fact that she's 24, I do expect that we will see more strides in her game. I know we just talked about how Alencar is new too. We're going to see strides in her game even at 34, but I expect to see more strides in Luciano's game. And Luciano already shows to be a much better striker. I would say she's a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. One thing that's going for Alencar is you see Alencar all bruised and battered there, not too happy with the way she finished that fight. One thing that's going for her is that she already had a chance to step down into the octagon for her UFC debut against Rayanne Amanda, and she was victorious, looked pretty good in that fight. She has that going for herself. All in all, though, I do believe that Luciano is going to be able to avoid the submission here. I think that she'll know and be a little bit more prepared for what to expect as far as Alencar trying to get the fight down to the mat, pressing and going shooting for those takedowns and whatnot. I think she'll be prepared there. And as she defends, or even if she's taken down once or twice, she will continue to work up to her feet. She will be the fighter doing the damage. And remember, even in that last fight, she even had a moment where she had that reversal. She actually had 3 minutes and 41 seconds of control time. Okay, she was 1 for 1 for on her takedown. She had a takedown as well, but she also had a reversal down in the mat. So this isn't a fighter that has no clue what she's doing down in the mat. This is a girl that has jiu-jitsu skills. She's a well-rounded fighter, and Alencar is dangerous. Don't get it twisted. Alencar is dangerous with that polished BJJ background, but I think that it will be Luciano who snags up the W here to settle the score after that first fight was a draw. So let's go take a look at the betting line. Stephanie Luciano opened up as a minus 155 on BetUS. She's now at minus 145. Doesn't shock me. The line should be closer here. You guys, I mean, we saw Talita go out there and win 2 of 3 rounds, right? Essentially, even though it was a 10-8 in the third, she won 2 rounds. You know, if she could avoid being 10-8'd and she could do something similar and use the grappling skills that she has to kind of solidify some rounds, I mean, yeah, of course she's live to get the job done here. But I think that Luciano will be the fighter that's more well-rounded, the fighter that's looking to do that damage on the feet. Also note, she's going to have almost a 7-inch reach advantage here. She's 5 inches taller. Her legs are longer. She's a much more rangy fighter, and she knows what she's doing with her striking. She's a polished striker at 24 years old. We're going to see the best version of herself, obviously, fight to fight. This next fight will be the best version that we see from her. You know she's been working her craft since that last fight, which took place a while ago. Stephanie Luciano to win this fight via unanimous decision. I'm going to say there's a possibility she gets a TKO. I wouldn't bank on that, but I expect Luciano to get into her rhythm and her groove earlier on in this fight, inflicting that damage, solidifying rounds. Some rare ranked action amongst this card. It's in the bantamweight division, a very shallow division here. We got Yana Santos at number 12 taking on Nate Diaz with the wig at number 14. Shout out to my girl, Chasey Chandler. Always showing love on IG. She does follow me. I'm one of her few follows on IG. So I got love for Chandler. I think she's a solid chick. I think this is a very winnable fight for her. Okay, she's coming off a fight where she had that W over Josiane Nunes. I'm high on Josiane Nunes. I know she's a little bit one-dimensional, kind of a power puncher, but I think that Josiane Nunes is going to continue to have success in the UFC. She has a lot of big wins under her belt already, and I thought that that was a very respectable victory that Chandler just had, and it was a much-needed victory coming off the loss that she had against Norma Dumont. We understand that Dumont is a high-level fighter. She's really been proving that over the last couple of years. She's a tough outing for anybody. So, you know, don't put Chandler to the fire too much for the way that she lost that fight via decision. I think that she can bounce. I shouldn't say bounce back. She's coming off a victory. I think she could string off 2 victories here. Yana Santos is a fighter that's a little stale for my liking. She has decent skills, of course. The wife of Thiago Santos. She's been around the game for a while. This is a fighter that has 23 pro fights. So even though these fighters are similar in age, Chelsea Chandler, which is 8 fights, I think that she has a lot more mileage left to give to the fight game. I think that she's a lot more fresh as a fighter, even though she's just a year younger. I think she has more to give here. I think that she's elevating and rising as a fighter, while Yana Santos is just kind of stagnant, maybe even a little bit on the down slope here as she nears the end of her career. In my opinion, those are kind of the vibes I'm getting. But Yana's a tough chick. She's tough too, but she's there to be hit. We've seen her bloodied up before. I think that Chandler can find her rhythm here and can sneak one out. I think this is a very close fight. But I'm going to say that my girl Chelsea Chandler gets the decision victory here. We take a look at the betting odds. This fight opened up at pick'em odds. Chandler was a -115. She's now at even odds, +100. So we see slight movement coming towards Yana Santos' way. I think that has a little something to do with the fact that Yana Santos has been in those bigger name fights. She's fought higher level competition, right? She's been in there with girls like Holly Holm and whatnot. She's a more familiar name that's been around the fight game for a while. But just understand, Chelsea Chandler is not a bad fighter. She's well-rounded. She has jiu-jitsu skills. She could strike. She's a tough chick. I know everybody remembers when she got hit, she turned around and started running, but that's not really who she is as a fighter, right? I mean, that was just that kind of a situation. She's a tough chick. She will sit in the pocket. She will get bloodied up. You know, as her caption says here, bloody and having the time of my life. She is that type of fighter. She's a tough chick, and I think that she's really enjoying the fight game right now, and she's more involved and committed to the fight game. Maybe I'm wrong there, but just kind of a little read I have there. I think there's more value on the slight underdog in Chelsea Chandler. Shout out to my girl there. Hope she gets the victory. Now, we highlighted this fight in the intro for a reason. Fight taking place in the welterweight division. We got Jonny Parsons taking on Yusaku Kinoshita, 2 explosive knockout artists here. Jonny Parsons, if you guys remember, had a fight on Dana White's Contender Series where a lot of people thought that he lost the fight to Solomon Renfro, a young, talented fighter at the time. And you guys remember Renfro went on to have a devastating next couple fights after that. He really had some bad luck. But you got to give credit to Parsons, because even if you thought he lost that fight, he was the fighter that was bringing it. He was very aggressive. He's a fighter that's known for his striking. I believe he's been a striking coach over at Syndicate, the Syndicate gym there for a while. I don't know if he's still coaching over there. Maybe he is, because he's not really active as a fighter. You know, we were talking about that fight he had on Dana White's Contender Series. He's only had 1 fight since getting that contract, which is crazy to me, where he had a knockout over Danny Roberts. Danny Roberts, a dangerous striker in his own right, but a fighter that's very prone to being knocked out. A little bit of a tailor-made matchup for him there. Well, guess what? This is a little bit of a tailor-made matchup for Parsons once again. So seems like the UFC rewarding him for his exciting fighting style, because Kinoshita is a dangerous fighter, but he is there to be knocked out, as we just saw in his last 2 fights, where he was finished by Billy Goff and Adam Fouguet. Not the 2 highest level of fighters there. He was finished in the first round in both of those fights. Now, just to highlight what he was doing before going into this losing streak, he had a very nasty KO victory against Jose Enrique. That was a great fight. They were both essentially undefeated going into that fight. What was Enrique and Kinoshita, because the loss that he had here was a DQ because he was grabbing the cage as he was knocking out Simamura. Okay, that was another knockout victory for him, in fact. So he's a fight finisher. He was very hot going into those 2 fights where he had losses in, and everybody turned their back on him. I mean, we're going to get to the betting line here in a second, but everyone has turned their back on this young 23-year-old, at one time hot prospect. Not a lot of people are believing in his game. You have to understand this, though, man. He's just 23 years old, and he's training with some of the best fighters in the world over at Team Killcliff FC. He has a coach like Henry Hooft in his corner. You have to take into consideration that a young fighter like this is going to start to figure some things out and really should start to grow. When you have, guys like Gilbert Burns and Henry Hoof sitting there staring at you, critiquing you, and trying to give you some tips, and you're that young, you should expect to see some growth. So I just want to say this: don't be surprised if we see a little bit more of a measured and patient Kinoshita. I think he'd be smart if he has that approach. If he goes in there just hunting his own knockout, I think it can go really bad for him. And in fact, when it's all said and done, even though I'm pointing to the fact that there could be this growth coming from the youngster there, I do expect at the end of the day, I expect these 2 fighters to start slinging it. I expect things to heat up, and I expect to see a knockout here, and I lean towards Johnny Parsons being the fighter that gets that knockout. He's just shown to be a more durable fighter. He's been knocked out once, but it was back in 2018, 6 years ago. Since then, we've seen he can eat shots. We see him walking through shots. He's like a little bulldog. He has the Teller garage setup. His garage is looking very similar to the Tellers here, getting that working. I don't have the belt hanging up on my garage thing there, but still I got the bag going and whatnot, and I know what it's like getting in that work in the garage. So shout out to Parsons for putting in that work. He's a little bulldog. I think at the end of the day, he's going to touch Kinoshita with something that's going to hurt him once again, and he's going to get knocked out again, which is going to be really tough for Kinoshita. I almost hope that's not the case, because he was one time a promising up-and-comer, a youngster there. You don't want to go on a 3-fight losing skid all by way of first-round KO. But you know what? I think that's going to be the case. Maybe we see the knockout in the second round, but I'm leaning towards an early KO for Johnny Parsons, the little bulldog. He's going to march forward. He has that dog in him. Remember in that Danny Roberts fight, he got the knockout with just seconds left in the second round. I mean, this dude's pressing at all times, and the pressure is going to be a lot for Kinoshita to kind of dance around and try to sneak out a decision. But just want to highlight one more time, though, he does have fight-ending power, okay? Let's not completely forget about the fight-ending power that he has. So you have to understand that there is a possibility that he gets his own knockout. Even though Parsons has looked durable, he definitely is live to hit a potential knockout. He's a plus 160 dog. I would say, as far as the betting line is concerned, the plus 160 on Kinoshita, I would say the value is on him. It's a little hard for me to be targeting Parsons at a minus 190 line. 2 very dangerous fighters, and just with also the aspect of Kinoshita possibly slowing the pace down and being a more rangy and maybe a more complete fighter. But all in all, like I said, I got Parsons to get that first round KO. The betting value on the money line will be on Kinoshita. And this is a fight, maybe we're looking at some unders, under 1.5 on this fight. See what kind of lines you could shop on that, or some type of knockout prop bet there. That's definitely a fight that we could be talking about in the prop video. Hey, you guys, I want to give an apology to Belal Muhammad, because I got the champions scrolling right under me here, and I still have Leon Edwards listed as the welterweight champion. Sorry about that, Belal. Another slap in Belal Muhammad's face. This dude gets so much disrespect. I mean, no disrespect there. Obviously, I want to keep it professional, and we will put Belal's name as the current welterweight champion of the world, because that is the case. And there he is. Look at it. Welterweight champion, Belal Muhammad, right under me. Okay, we're going up to the heavyweight division here. We have Karl Williams taking on Jhonata Diniz, the 2-time Dana White's Contender Series victor. In fact, two early knockouts in both of those fights too, right? Knocked out Eduardo Neves in the first round. Then he knocked out Austin Lane in brutal fashion in the second round. That was a great fight for him. He was down before he eventually got that knockout, right? He was taken down. Austin Lane was a little bit of a step ahead of him with his athleticism. That's a little bit of an alarming thing because Austin Lane, not the best of fighters. Now, Karl Williams is no stranger to being in the cage with high-level strikers. He has a recent victory over Justin Tafa. Justin Tafa, I would say he's a similar fighter to Diniz, right? Kind of a fighter that we have question marks in regards to his grappling. Maybe his conditioning comes in a little soft and whatnot, but he's a dude that's very technical standing. He's measured and he looks to measure you up and knock you out. And so I like the fact that Karl Williams was just recently in the cage with Tafa. Okay. And in fact, that was his last fight. And in that fight, he fought somewhat of an intelligent fight, changing levels, taking Tafa down and controlling him down on the mat. He had some moments where Tafa was pressuring him and he weathered the storm there. And I thought that was a good performance by him as far as going in there, getting a W. Okay, not now as far as putting on a show for the fans. Obviously, that wasn't the greatest performance there. And you have to understand, Karl Williams isn't that type of fighter. A lot of decision victories here. Decision Chase Sherman, decisioned Lucas Bresky, decisioned Jimmy Lawson. That was his fight on Dana White's Contender Series where he went out there and out-wrestled a Division I wrestler in Jimmy Lawson. Okay, Jimmy Lawson, a Penn State wrestler, I believe, right? So a decorated wrestler. That kind of showcased the abilities that Williams has. Okay, Williams, not really known as like a decorated wrestler, but he's a well-rounded fighter. He's a good athlete. He has solid footwork. I know the numbers don't really point to him putting good volume out on the feet, but when I watch tape on him, I mean, he throws decent volume out there. I guess they don't really classify a lot of them as significant strikes. He kind of throws these peppering type of shots. I don't want him to play that game, but if somehow it was a fight that had some moments there, I think that he could throw some volume, but eventually it will be crucial for him to change levels and secure takedowns. Okay, I want to make that clear. It will be crucial for him to get takedowns. Otherwise, he will be playing with fire because Diniz has shown to be very dangerous. All 7 of Diniz's victories have come by way of knockout. I don't think that he's going to find the knockout here. I think that Karl Williams will be a little bit too crafty for him, and he will squiggle out of his grasp, and he will get him down to the mat. I'm going to say that Karl Williams gets the decision victory. He's a -240 on BetUS. He's a big favorite here. I got to give you guys an answer. You know, what do I think of this line, right? You guys want to know where I stand. I know that. I'm going to say that I would say the value is still with Karl Williams, even as high as this line is. I think this is one of the more safe plays on the card. Even though Diniz is so dangerous with his striking, Karl Williams has shown to be a fighter that has high fight IQ, and he will stay out of those situations. I have a hard time seeing Diniz not being on his back for a significant amount of time throughout this fight. So, and as he starts to get exhausted from trying to work his way back up, I think things will look worse and worse for him as we get later into the fight. So give me Karl Williams via decision here.
Michael Vick here at BetUS.com. Get it all. Huge bonuses, great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
Oh, what do you know? We got more ranked action to talk about. But coincidentally, it's in the women's bantamweight division, the most shallow division. So maybe that's why the names are not that exciting. Karol Rosa taking on Pannie Kianzad. I'm going to cut to the chase with this one. I think this is a fight that could easily play out very closely. This could be a potential split decision type of affair here. Karol Rosa, at one point in time, was highly regarded. I think she kicked her UFC career off going 4-0. Okay, and then she started to be a pretty heavy favorite against some of the fights that would come after that, and she's basically losing more than she was winning, right? She lost to Sarah McMahon, bounced back with the victory over Lena Landsberg, then the loss to Norma Dumont, victory over Yana Santos, who we just talked about, then the loss to Irene Aldana. Spent a lot of ups and downs. If you guys believe in the trend of the win-loss, she's due for a win here. She's shown that she could bounce back from losses with the W. Realistically, just to this matchup, this is obviously a winnable matchup for her. Pannie, more of a striking-based fighter that's been working on her grappling, but I think that Rosa may have an edge if she can get this fight down to the mat, maybe try to change levels on the feet. I think this fight will be very close, and that's why it's really screaming a split decision to me, because I think this fight will take place on the feet for an extensive amount of time, and I could see Kianzad having some moments with her Muay Thai. She's not a bad fighter. She's taken her fair share of losses, but you take a look at the level of competition. She's lost to respectable fighters like Macy Chiasson, who I've been high on for a little bit. I see a lot of people turn their back on her. Macy's is not a bad fighter. Ketlin Vieira, a good fighter. Raquel Pennington, obviously a good fighter. All the way back to the Julia Avila loss, who Avila's not bad either. She's been inactive, and she's kind of deteriorated with her career, but still in the mix. She had a couple wins here, right, against Jessica Rose Clark, Betch Correa, Sajara Eubanks, Alexis Davis, had a common victory over Lena Landsberg. Okay, so she's not a fighter that's foreign to getting her hand raised in the octagon. She had her moments, and don't be shocked if she pulls off the upset here. I'm going to say the value is going to be on the underdog in Kianzad. I just don't have an overwhelming amount of faith in Rosa, but I will lean her way. Not crazy about the -170 line, -175 currently. Not crazy about that. I wouldn't be chalking that up. I think that you will be on the edge of your seat here, but I will pick Rosa to win this fight, and I'm going to say if she doesn't. Yeah, no, I'm going to say this is a decision. I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to say this is a split decision victory for Karol Rosa. In the featherweight division, we have Chepe Mariscal taking on Damon Jackson. Jackson, the wet blanket, coming off a very lackluster performance where he snuck out that victory over Alexander Hernandez. He was the dog in that fight. It was a much-needed victory for Jackson, so maybe you don't be too mad at him for the tactics that he had in that fight, but he really doled that matchup up, and he was coming into that fight off losses to Dan Ige and Billy Q. He's a fighter, like I said, kind of that wet blanket type of fighter, but he's still a fighter that tends to participate in exciting matchups. Just the way he stylistically clashes with these fighters that land on him. He tries to rip them down to the mat, a lot of wild scrambles. He gets bloodied up. And I think that this fight will be a fight that's a fun one for us. I think that it'll bounce back to be one of the more fun performances from Damon Jackson. It's not going to be like his last fight. He knows he needs to go out there and perform as well. Otherwise, the UFC will really have him on the chopping block. On the other hand, Chepe Mariscal, this is a fighter I want to be the first to say I kind of underestimated him coming into the UFC. There's no question about that. He had a string of losses, but when you really dive into the losses that he had, they're all against respectable names. Sean Seriano, maybe at the bottom of that list, but still a recognizable name, training over at Team Killcliff, a former UFC fighter. The Steve Garcia knockout loss doesn't look that bad these days, does it, boys? The Joanderson Brito knockout loss, that doesn't look that bad, does it, boys? All right, I mean, these are respectable names. The Bryce Mitchell decision loss. Bryce Mitchell is a horse. You guys know the pressure he could push on you. He got finished by Gregor Gillespie. Gillespie, one of the more decorated wrestlers we've ever seen come into the UFC, that somehow vanished from the octagon, unfortunately. So, just understand that the losses were against respectable opponents. And since he's put things together now, he is on a 6-fight winning streak with a victory over Trevor Peake, Jack Jenkins. That was a nice underdog tag that we hit there. That was on the Adesanya Strickland fight card. And he hurt Jenkins, right? Kind of had that judo throw and he injured him there. Some people think it was a fluke, but it really wasn't. Okay. He has skills and he put himself in a position to cause that injury. He has some solid judo skills, which will be crucial in this matchup. And he just bounced back with a split decision victory over Morgan Charriere, which is a good victory. Morgan's the real deal. And that was a close fight. Whether you scored it for Chepe or not, it was still a close fight. And he showed flashes once again. Training over at Team Elevation. He has good cardio, good conditioning. I think that there's some things that Chepe has in his arsenal that will be crucial for him to get a W against Damon Jackson. I'm going to circle right back to those judo skills. When they're in the clinch and Jackson's trying to make things ugly and he's trying to work his way to getting the fight down to the mat, I think that Chepe will be fine there. I think that he works in the clinch very well. He has a good base under him, and I think that he'll stuff a lot of those takedown attempts where then he'll be the more polished striker. I think he could land on Damon. He could hurt Damon. He could potentially get a knockout over Jackson here. The fact that he trains over in Denver, Colorado at Team Elevation, he shows to have good cardio. It's not like he's going to gas out and Jackson can try to wilt him in there. That's something that Jackson looks to do. He has really good conditioning. I think that Chepe Mariscal will be just fine here. I want to say that Mariscal continues the win streak here, gives Jackson a loss, and you may want to keep an eye on Jackson getting cut by the UFC, because I know the UFC was not happy with him with that last performance there. And if he doesn't have this fight play out long enough to kind of show that he's willing to push an entertaining fight once again, the UFC will be quick to put him on the chopping block and chop that head off there. So Damon Jackson needs to do something here. He needs to show up. Even if he loses, he needs to have some entertaining type of events take place early on in this fight. But I do like Mariscal to get another victory, as I said. Let's take a look at the betting line and see what we're talking about here. This is an interesting one. Another heavy favorite. Mariscal opens up as a minus 225. He's now minus 250. It gets to that point. It gets to the point where it's just you're reaching on some of these favorites, even though technically they should be going out there and winning these matchups, or they have avenues to victory, and you kind of want to be on their side. It's just, you got to be careful, man. Damon Jackson is a dog, and sometimes he goes out there and he really spoils the party. If he just continues to press, and like I said, he uses those wet blanket tactics and he's hanging all over Chepe, he could really make your night frustrating if you have Chepe in a parlay. But I got to make a decision here. I'm going to say that the value is still on Mariscal. Just don't let that line get any higher, because then you're really pushing it. But I like Mariscal to win this fight. And I also think that Mariscal can find a finish in this fight. Okay, just let's pull up Mariscal's last couple wins. He's had 7 knockout victories out of his 16 victories, so he's had his fair share. The injury to Jack Jenkins, not really a finish there, but on the regional scene, he was getting some knockouts. He has polished boxing skills. I mean, he can land some shots, and Damon Jackson's there to be hit. So give me Mariscal to get a TKO finish here. How about that? He's going to shut down that pressure and the grappling of Jackson. He's going to put Jackson in some vulnerable positions, and I'm going to say that he lands some big shots and TKOs the very tough Damon Jackson. Over to the flyweight division, we have 2 very similar fighters here, 2 high-level grapplers in Alan Nascimento and Rafael Filho. Both fighters almost similar in age, 32 on Nascimento to 31 on Filho. One thing I do like going for Nascimento is that he has a little bit of a size advantage here. He'll have almost a 2-inch reach advantage. He's about 2 inches taller. He's one of the bigger fighters in this division. And I think that could be crucial in a matchup where you have 2 fighters that are high-level grapplers, and there's going to be those grappling exchanges going on, and I like that size advantage that Nascimento has here. One thing that he also has going for himself is that he's very good at that rear naked choke, and that is something that we've seen used on Rafael Filho. You take a look at some of his more recent losses. He just was finished by Muhammad Makayev in the 3rd round via rear naked choke. I could see something similar playing out there. He was also caught in a rear naked choke back in one of his regional losses over there in Chuto, Brazil, to Luan Matheus. Okay, so you have to understand that this is an avenue of victory for Alan Nascimento. But you also do note that Rafael is talented down there, and maybe he's working on that aspect of his game, and he could avoid that. Another thing that I do like going for Alan Nascimento here is, of course, training at a shoot box. I mean, you're talking about some of the best fighters representing Brazil in the game. Poor old Thomas Almeida, man, never really panned out. He was one of the initial up-and-comers from that gym, one of the young and up-and-comers who didn't really pan out. He had issues with his chin. Then you had this guy over here to the left of Nascimento. Maybe some of you guys heard of him, Charles Do Bronx Oliveira. Talk about a young fighter working their way into the UFC and having success. Man, I remember watching Charles Oliveira go out there and just pulling off chokes left and right. He came into the UFC as just a kid and pulled off submissions off Darren Elkins, the very tough Darren Elkins. And then Efrain Escudero was coming off the Ultimate Fighter. He was a very highly regarded prospect too. So Charles Oliveira, man, was just a wizard on the mat since he was a kid, but just getting me excited about Du Bronx there. But back to this matchup here. I like Alan Nascimento. Like I said, the size, I think he's actually, even besides the size, just a little bit more of a polished BJJ player. He's a very measured fighter. And although I think Rafael is a good fighter, this fight just screams to me that Alan Nascimento gets the better of those grappling exchanges. Whether he gets the sub or not is the question more so. Even if it goes to the judges' scorecards, I think the grappling of Nascimento will just be a slight step ahead. But the question, like I said, does he get that rear naked choke? I'm going to say he gets a sub. I'm going to say that he gets a sub. I'm going to say he gets a 3rd round submission. I think that the pressure wears on Filho, and he'll be in some vulnerable situations as he tries to work his way back up to the feet or whatnot, and he'll put himself in a position where he can get caught in a sub. Alan Nascimento is a minus 205 currently, opened up as a minus 225. I'm not surprised the line is coming down. These fighters are similar in a lot of ways, and a minus 225 line may be a little high there, but I'm not saying I have a major problem if you targeted him even at that line. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, this is a fight that the line should be much closer and they're mirror images of each other. I don't really agree with that sentiment. I disagree. I think Alan Nascimento has shown to be a higher level grappler. He's a bigger fighter, comes from a big gym, and I think that this is a fight where he will get the job done. So you kind of monitor that line and see how it goes there. Maybe you get some better value if it keeps dipping and dipping, but I like Alan Nascimento to get that submission victory. Jarno Irens taking on Youssef Zalal in the featherweight division. Now, both of these fighters had rough starts to their UFC career to an extent. Zalal a little bit more success than Irens, but Irens starts off 0-2. And if you guys have been rocking with me for a while, you guys know I was saying Jarno Irens is not a bad fighter. Even when he was losing those fights, he obviously has one weakness in his game, or one main weakness in his game, and that is his takedown defense and grappling. He needs to sharpen that aspect up. But I mean, take a look at that. Jarno Irens with a 28% takedown defensive ratio, very low. But he has some solid striking. He has that Dutch kickboxing style. He looks good on the feet when he's able to keep it there. But he kicked off his career losing to William Gomis and Sang-Woo Choi. And in both of those fights, he was taken down and put on his back. And against Choi, that's a little bit of an issue. But you have to like the way he bounced back against Stephen Wynn, where he was able to get that first UFC victory. 29 years old, you could obviously expect his takedown defense and grappling to sharpen up, as that's the main aspect of his game that he's going to be working on. The problem is Youssef Zalal has shown to be a more well-rounded fighter from a younger age. And even though Arens is working on that aspect of his game, I still definitely expect Zalal to have a leg up on him there. He'll be the more well-rounded fighter. This is another fighter that I've been very high on, right? We targeted him in his UFC return fight in that last fight against Billy Q. We got him at some serious dog odds. I was paying very close attention to what he was doing since he got let go by the UFC. You know, after getting cut by the UFC, he's just was going out there. He was having these pro kickboxing matches, these pro boxing matches. He was going out there in these MMA matches, finishing dudes left and right over in this promotion called Sparta. You could pull all those fights up on YouTube. I thought that he was looking really good. When you mix that with the fact that he was so young, still 26, 27 years old, it's like I had a feeling, I'm like, he's going to work his way back to the UFC and have success. That's exactly what he did against the true veteran in Billy Q. And I expect him to really solidify himself as a UFC fighter, get his feet dug down in the dirt and settle himself in. I think he'll be fighting in the octagon for potentially the rest of his career. He's a good fighter. I'm not saying he's going to make a run to the title. Time will tell with that. But I mean, he has a lot of potential. He's 27 years old, man. He's one of the staples of Team Factory X. And he gets a lot of good work over there. So just continue to expect his game to rise and rise. Okay, but how do I see this fight playing out? I think that on the feet, Arens could more than hold his own. And I think that we'll see a lot of exciting exchanges there. Zalal as a good kickboxer as well. Talked about some of the recent pro experience he had boxing, kickboxing. Then he's already shown from a young age that he was polished there. I would be very interested to see how those exchanges go. But the difference is going to be that Zalal can change levels. He can pressure Arens in the clinch, and he could be the better mixed martial artist here. You have to side with Youssef Zalal. He's just a more fine-tuned mixed martial artist. So I will pick him to win this fight. Is he going to go out there and get a finish? I'm going to say that there's a potential he can sneak in a sub and get a submission victory over Arens, but I'm going to say that Arens toughs this one out, but Arens will spend some time on his back, and that's going to be what costs him the fight here. I think that he loses this fight just due to the fact that Zalal changes levels and keeps him on his heels a little bit more. So Zalal opens up as a minus 225. He's now a minus 250. Action coming in on him, even as he opened up as a pretty hefty favorite. I like Zalal. I like Arens as well, but I like Zalal and I have no issue with the higher line. I think that he cruises his way to another victory here. I think he really starts to hit his stride. And Arens is just, he's a little bit of an older fighter, and it's just, he's trying to catch up with the grappling, but it's going to be a little bit too late. And unfortunately, even though as talented as he is, I don't know, man, this is the dude that could be cut by the UFC. He needs to really figure things out quickly.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
We got the Snow Leopard, Javid Basharat, taking on El Guapo Chris Gutierrez. El Guapo, my Spanish isn't the best, but I believe it means the handsome one. Not exactly sure who gave Chris Gutierrez that nickname. Must have been his abuela or something like that. But Javid Basharat comes into this fight with a lot of energy behind him. He's very hungry to bounce back with the victory. He lost a very close fight against Ayman Sahabi. In fact, I saw a lot of you guys online very upset with the way that that fight went. I know he spoiled a lot of your guys' parlays, and a lot of you guys were mad at me because we cashed in on one of the biggest underdog plays that we've ever cashed in on. As far as a money line goes, that probably was the biggest underdog I ever cashed in. I think I had a plus 500 ticket, and I extensively talked to you guys when we broke down that fight. The fact that that line was so off, okay? It was crazy. I mean, Basharat, to be as big of a favorite as he was against Sahabi, was disrespectful. And although I leaned towards Basharat winning that fight, but we talked about there was an extensive amount of value on Sahabi, and some of you guys still got mad at me. Some of you guys just don't really understand how this thing works. When there's a lot of value there, sometimes you just have to throw a little something at that. I threw one unit on Sahabi, and we cashed there. But that was a very close fight. If you really rewatch that fight, I thought Sahabi did win that fight. He definitely won the third round. I think it was the second round that played out closely. And I mean, you take a look at the media scores. Almost everybody had it for Sahabi. Only 3 had it for Basharat. You take a look at the numbers. It was Sahabi that outlanded him 75-67. But when you go to the round by round, it was that second round, again, that I do believe was the close one. And Basharat did slightly outland him 28-26. Yeah, but Sahabi landing a little bit cleaner, if you ask me. But I'm still high on Basharat, okay? I didn't turn my back on him. I still think that he's a very polished fighter. Great cardio, good volume on the feet, great grappling, great BJJ. He gets the fight down to the mat for the most part, and he out-hustles these guys. And I think there's a great avenue, a victory for him here against Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez is a fighter that has had good takedown defense throughout his UFC career. But, you know, you take a look at that last fight, that last performance he had, he was on his back against Song Yadong there at moments in time. And I think that Basharat can do something similar to what Song Yadong did to him there. And I think that you mix that with the fact that Basharat is so motivated to get back to the winning column. The fact that he's a younger fighter at 28 years old, I think he has a lot more left to give the fight game, a lot more mileage left on him. Chris Gutierrez, 33. He has 27 pro fights. Chris Gutierrez does work those calf kicks very well. He's a good striker. He's a very measured striker. I don't want to completely overlook Chris Gutierrez here. I don't want it to come off like I'm overlooking him completely. But I think that this is a great bounce back spot for Javid Basharat. I think he wins this fight. I really do. I'm going to say that Javid Basharat wins a decision here. Chris Gutierrez is not an easy fighter to finish, and I think that Javid Basharat's going to out-hustle him, and he's going to get some takedowns, and he's going to solidify some rounds. And even on the feet, he'll be pushing the pace with his volume. And just to go over some numbers, Javid Basharat landing 5.42 strikes per minute compared to Gutierrez's 4.8, which is not bad either, but Basharat really pushes the volume there. And when it comes to the grappling, you know, both men have decent numbers. Like I said, Gutierrez, 69% takedown defensive rate, but in his last fight, he was taken down, and Basharat will test you there. All right, so at minus 190, which is quite a high line against a proven veteran in Gutierrez, I still say that the value is on Basharat. I like Basharat to win the fight, so minus 190 won't necessarily scare me away. I'm interested to see how that line trends. So you guys stick with me throughout the fight week, and let's see which way this line goes. I want to talk more about this fight. You guys, just a very quick announcement. I hope to see you guys all at my fight companions taking place for the main cards of these events. Like I said, there may be 1 or 2 that we skip periodically, but you guys can consistently expect me to be doing these fight companions for all cards. So if you don't see it posted on the channel, that's one maybe we're skipping, but you guys will see it posted the day of. If you go to my live videos here on the channel, go to the live videos, and you'll see that thumbnail, and you'll see it scheduled to take place. And I hope you guys have your camera and your mic ready, and you guys join me and we watch a fight together. I'd love to watch a fight with you guys. And also, if you can, like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to work with me for my official plays, that's always there for you guys too, if you want to reach out to me for further information. All right, guys, back to the show. And that takes us to the main event. We're up in the heavyweight division, number 8 versus number 9, the rematch. Tybura at number 8, 38 years old. But remember, this is the heavyweight division, so he's not necessarily completely antique here. He still has a little bit left to give. He's coming in off a solid bounce back victory where he went out there and he finished Tai Tuivasa. That was a fight that we picked correctly. I believe he was the slight dog there. A lot of people were on Tai. Tybura was coming in off that quick loss to Tom Aspinall, which I've been saying, not from the very beginning, but I've been saying as of recently, I think that Tom Aspinall will be the greatest heavyweight that we've ever seen. I truly believe that. I think that dude, don't even get me started on him. So that loss doesn't look bad at all. Tom Aspinall is going to finish everybody early, including John Jones. Meet me in the comment section if you disagree. But Tybura is such a proven fighter. And we definitely have to bring up the fact that he went out there and defeated Serghei Spivac back in 2020 via unanimous decision. If you run the stats back on that fight, I mean, he outstruck him 116 to 40. He had 8 minutes and 22 seconds of control time. I mean, he really handled that fight. Okay, that was a 3-round fight, but he essentially dominated. Okay, Serghei Spivac, I'm going to go in on Spivac here for a second because I'm not a fan of his. I thought that the performance that he had against Cyril Gane was atrocious. He never tried to shoot any takedowns on him after what John Jones just did, getting that takedown with ease. You'd think that you would definitely test Cyril Gane, the very talented striker there. And I understand that Cyril Gane had attacks coming up the middle, but you got to at least measure them up and get one takedown attempt on him. He never did. He was finished up quickly. He looked horrible out there. And Spivac is a fighter that has some grappling abilities as well. He was coming into that fight off a 3-fight winning streak, dating back to his last loss where he was finished in the first round against the heavyweight GOAT, Tom Aspinall. He's going to pass up Stipe Miocic real fast. Mark my words there, guys. All right, listen. I'm going to give you guys a nice, clean, sharp answer for this fight. I think that Marcin Tybura has proven to be the better fighter. I think he's going to go out there and be a step ahead of Serghei Spivac once again. I'm not overly concerned with the fact that Tybura is 38 years old compared to the more youthful 28 of Spivac. I just think that Spivac is a little bit of a head case, and Tybura is a proven fighter. He's a very tough dude. This is a dude that's cut his teeth against the best in the heavyweight division for a very long time. And like I said earlier, 38's not ancient in this division. I think that he could still go out there and be a step ahead of Spivac. And I'm very disappointed in Spivac and some of the bigger opportunities that he's had. And I ain't picking him. I'm not picking him over Tybura. He ain't going to get redemption here. Give me Marcin Tybura to get another victory over Spivac and to get a little momentum going once again. I mean, look, Tybura is going to have the volume edge on the feet. He's going to be out volume him. He's the more polished kickboxer. He has grappling abilities. I think he's a better conditioned fighter. There's just a lot of avenues for Tybura to go out there and handle business there. So he opened up as a -110 on BetUS. He's now -115. Minuscule line movement at the moment. I would expect that Tybura will settle in like at -130, -150, somewhere in that range as a favorite. So we'll see action coming in him. You probably want to jump on that line earlier. Marcin Tybura, is he going to get a finish? This is a 5-round fight. Maybe he gets a late finish in this fight. I'll say maybe he gets a late finish, but it might be tough. We saw the fight played out last time. There was no finish going on in that one, but this is a fight where we have 2 extra rounds. Maybe Tybura gets that finish, man. It's hard for me to pick. Decision or KO, man. I'm torn. I'm torn, guys. Screw it. We'll say 4th round TKO, Tybura. All right, guys. That's going to wrap this episode up. Appreciate you guys so much. Just want to leave you guys with some quick parting words. We won't go crazy here. It's a smaller card. I know every single one of you guys has aspirations or something that you're doing in your own life. You guys are grinding towards a goal or something like that. I hope all you guys stay motivated out there. We talk a lot about that type of stuff in the beginning of the year with the New Year's resolutions and all that. Here we are cruising into September. We're getting towards the end of the year here. And I hope you guys are keeping that same energy. If you're slowing down a little bit, maybe my voice here could just be a little bit of a pump up for you guys. Whatever you're working on, push forward with it. Clean up whatever you're doing. Make sure whatever you're doing, you're the best at it. All right, guys. I got a lot of love for all you guys that hang around with me to the end of these videos. So much support to you guys. I got a lot of positive messages from you guys too. Some really heartfelt messages too. Shout out to all you guys. You guys know what I'm talking about that are out there that have sent me those types of messages, man. And my heart is with all you guys out there, especially all you guys that are going through the trials and tribulations of life, like we all do. All of us are going through it. So some a little bit worse than others at different times. But Teller sends his love towards your guys' way. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.